Okay, so the last lesson, lesson 8, I guess. Yeah, we talk about enemies. We plan to initially create enemy class. So, so this is where we left off, and going to continue uh, creating enemies on your scene. Okay, so this is the enemy class. You can use it for any number of scenes later on. So let's get start with this. So yeah, so go ahead and open enms. That's what I call enemies. You can call it any name you like. uh, right, so the .h file, so this is what it is, and we're going to start coding from there, right? Okay. um, right, so let's have some the functions that we're going to use. Okay, the few of them. You can extend these classes as much as you want. I will stick with pretty basics, right? Okay, right. Okay, so we'll have a function to draw, obviously, draw enemy, right? So this is for the drawing, right? And then we have to place the enemies. So the placing them, so let's have something called place enemy, right? Enemy placing. So the place, well, we can have a near far, because we having already a 3D atmosphere. Let's have a three-dimensional. So we can have a little bit closer and a little bit far, using this. Or if you're using only 2D in one plane, you can change the sizes, but this also work, having XYZ. And what kind of actions? Maybe they can do shooting, following, whatever you want to do. You have more than one action if you want to put in there, so you can have actions just like the player. Okay, and okay, so comment this out. Comment this. What is this for? This is to draw. All right, objects, and then place, right? Place enemies. Let's say enemy place enemy, right? And then also these are the actions, right? The movement and actions, movements, yeah, movements and actions that you want to do, right? Okay, so then what else we need? Obviously we need to handle the textures, right, and all that. So oh, one thing, if you're having something to fight with enemies, check whether they're alive or not. Is enemy live, right? So this is a variable. If you want to use that, well, I'll let you decide those things. The status of the object, so the status of the enemy, right? Status of the enemy, right? And that's that. And then oh, pretty important thing, we need texture. So let's have a gl new int enemy text, right? Enemy text. So this is the texture handler. So yeah, you will have multiple enemies, like the same picture, different ones. That's what I'm going to do, right? So in this case, I can have one texture handler to all of them, and so you don't have to have individual textures. So I will show you what I mean. But anyway, so I'm going to create something here called handle texture. When you create instance of that, you only use one Show you in a minute what I mean. Right, so here let's have include, right? Include what I have, right? We need texture loader, right? So because we're using a TX as that, so what are the includes I need here? So let me fill that before I continue further. You need I will have my texture as an instance here, so it will be a texture loader, right? Tex loader.h, right? And since I use GLU int, I need my GL to be activated here. So include let's have GL /GL.h, right? Okay, so that is what it's giving me. So I have that. Yeah, they're moving on time, so let's have the timer as well. So include timer, right? Timer.h. So I'm going to use that, right? Oops, it will be underscore, of course, I guess. Yeah, right. Okay, so I have the timer, I have GL, I have texture, and I'm using one of them there. And yes, so what else I need? I need the position, I need the size, whether I'm rotating them, and number of frames I'm using. So let's go ahead and create few more functions, right? I mean the variables. So I call all floats, right? X position, right? And let's have commas. So if you want to use separate lines, you can. Y pos, and again Z pos, right? So it is a position. I will use another float for sizes. Let's have an X size, right? And Y size, X and Y, oh not Z, sorry. X size and Y size. So what you need, well, I can set different scaling. So this is for the scaling factor, right? Scaling factor, right? And this one is for translate, or the position placement, right? Yeah, placements. So let's call it placements, right? Okay, so now what else? Rotations, right? Rotations. Float again. Rotation X, right? Rotation X. Let's say rotate X, just to be short. And rotate Y, right? Rotate Y, and then rotate Z, right? So this is for the rotations. Rotations. Okay, so that is that. And then number of frames, right? Number of frames are usually integer value. Why you need frames? Well, I'm using a sprite sheet, right? So I need frames. So number of frames. Well, why I'm putting it like this? Maybe I just thought the way I'm designing this is only two actions I have, moving left and moving right. So it's the same number of frames. If you're using a different sprite sheet with a different number of frames for each action, maybe the action part you have to pass the frame number. Okay, so that means you have to apply frame numbers here, and you can alter it. For my case, I'm just using a one sprite sheet. I'll show you what it is. Let me open it in a minute so I can show you that what I'm using for mine. So once it come up, I'll show you. So number of frames I need, and in this case I'm having make them walk across the screen horizontally, right? So in that case I will set something called the speed of the movement. This is something that we need later, so I'm just moving it, I'm putting it here, so we'll use that to move, I mean, let's say moving speed, right, on x-axis. So that's what I'm going to use, right? Okay, so obviously each one, maybe you can change the timer to the speeds. So because of that, let me have the timer here. So each instance have its own timer, so let's call it te equals new timer, right? New timer. Right. I think it is underscore here as well as here, right? All right, so what is the image I'm going to use? The sprite sheet will be look like this. So this is my sprite sheet, and these are the actions of the enemy. So it will have the same number of frames. So it is 1 2 3 4 5 6 7. So if you have different frames, how you handle that is different. So you can look at the player function that I did, you can get an idea. Right, so I put these everything these things in my public, right? If you want, you can put it in private, whatever you want to do it. Let's put something in private and see how it works. So in this case I will do the float x min. Oh yeah, I need the x minimum, y minimum and all that, right? So x min, y min, right? X max, right? Max and y max, right? So we'll use that. So I'm just showing you how to use the private instead of public everything. You may move most of it if you are into private. You can if you want to, right? So anyway, I'm going to move these dots here and see how it works. I think that's all I need. Maybe I will create an instance of a texture in here as well, so that will be convenient, right? So if I use the texture loader and have some texture in here instead of having it somewhere else, right? So yeah, I would do that. Let me see whether in that case I can have my textures instead of putting it somewhere else globally. I can have it here. So after this class right here, let me create, oops, there's some errors here. Let's have the texture loader, right? So it's underscore texture loader, right? Texture loader is my class, I guess. Yeah, and we call again here let's go texture loader, and let's give a name, enm text. Yeah, that's the texture, call it right. So I can have that. Right, so in that case it is an instance which belongs to this guy. Okay, so I can use that for all of it, right? Again, I'm thinking if I use it like this, well, that texture is for each class. So if I making multiple instances, uh, I don't have to load everything with this guy. I can create one enemy with loading texture, because even you have multiple enemies, you have to use only once, which is a picture loader, right, or the image loader. So if you're using it once, there's no reason even you have it in each class, call it each class and load images. We'll come to that and we'll talk about it when we are implementing that part, the scene initialization, right? Yeah, we could have put something here called enemy initialization or enemy init, and then load the image of enemy over there. So yeah, let's have that. So I will have something uh, initialize enemy, right? E-N-E-M-I, right? Okay, so I have that there. Initialization of the enemy. Then let's take a file name of the image that I'm going to do. So it is a pointer. um, we'll call it file name later, right? Okay, so this will do. So let me uh, save this, right? I will save all, make sure it compiles. If I don't have any errors, it will. Seems like everything is good. Yeah, so then we go to enemy.cpp. All right, let me make this one bigger. All right, and let's call all the classes I have, the functions I have created. So you go here, insert, and insert, where's my insert here, all the classes without implementation. So I have 4 of them, so go ahead and call them. So I have it like this now. Right here, the variable name is file name, and here the placing these guys, we call it X and Y and Z. Yeah, so let's call it like that, right? Alright, so the next step is filling up these. So the initialization, you have 2 places to do. One is when you're creating the instance, that is what comes under constructor. If you want to change it, you can change it in init enemy. So the first thing we do is we change it, we're setting things initially. So I have exposition, right? In my case, I will have exposition equal to y position, right? Set it to 0.0, and I cannot have the z 0.0. I will put them a little back, like maybe z position 0.4, 0.5. Yeah. Let's put -4.0. Yeah, like that. Okay. Okay. So then the size. Since I'm working on this guy, I just set the size like this because I have done this before, so I have a little fine tuning on it. So I'm going to put the X size as is, and the Y size, I'm going to make it half of it, the size that I have. Well, it's look good, so that's why I'm doing that. So we'll look at later whether it's good or not. And the rotations, all the rotations that I have, rotate X, let's have rotate Y equal rotate Z, all set to 0.0. Okay, right, so I initialize my positions, I initialize my size, and this you saw the image that I have 7, right? 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 frames. So I will fix that here, semicolon there, and then the frames, equals 7. That is a good number. And okay, so why you need frames here? Well, that helps you to decide your min and max, right? So the x min equal y minimum equals 0.0 at the beginning, right? And x max, well, x max will be equal to 1 over the frames, right? But remember, this is a floating number, so the frames are integer actually. So I think if you put 1.0 on the top, it will work. If it is not, you have to this one has to be float here like that. This is much safer way to write it. Okay, and the y max, let's have y max 0.5, right? So y max is, did I type this right? Is it like this or is it like this? So let me check that. I'm not sure. Yeah, it is a big one, right? Yeah, so this guy has to be this min, and then this guy is max and max, right? So the max of this is 0.5 because I have only 2 images on the row. Okay, so I have that. So sounds good. The action, well, let's set the action. Did I have action variable? Have actions here. Well, that's all I have. I'm not using anything else. Yeah, so okay, so if I need actions, I will address that. I don't see whether I have one. Okay, so you don't have to worry about that, right? So this is all you need for initialization so far. If I need something more, I'll let you know. And then we drawing this. Yeah, so the drawing part will be similar to what we have done in the player, right? Yeah, so let's go ahead and open the player. Player.cpp is like this, and then I'm using vertices there, right? So in here I'm just using 1 and 2. If you want to use vertices, you can use it like this, the vertices. This is another way of doing it. I'm just doing it right now, is just apply these as quads of the value, which is just the value that I'm going to apply. I think I did one like that. Let me see the model. Do I have that? The model is just the teapot. Seems like I don't have anything. The parallax has something which is similar to, yeah, so we'll copy this one. So this helps a lot, right? So the polygon part, right, from here to here, we'll change these this thing height divide by whatever, we'll change that. That's all I have to do. So I'm a little bit lazy to type everything, so I just copy this one, right? And then edit that. It will be easy for me, right? So okay, go back to enemy.cpp. I'm talking about now how to draw this guy. So let's have that part here, and so begin polygons, and then I have my x min, y min, right? And then this is my first code, and let's have that to 1.0 1.0. So in this case, not negative, I'll get 1.0 here and 1.0 here, and well, this is just a 0 position, right? And okay, so then we'll have x max, y min. For that, let me have square, which is from minus 1.0 to positive 1.0. So what I'm doing here, right? Let me talk about that in a minute. So what I'm doing here is creating a square, right? So this square helps you to draw everything. I mean quad, drawing a quad, right? I call it GL underscore polygon. You can have different name if you want. So whatever I do here is look like this. So now 1 is somewhere here, right? So if I call this is 1 comma 1, right? Now that is the one I draw here. This is the point, right? And then I'm going backward, which is I'm going this way. So I mean just a horizontal line. So right here it is minus 1 to 1. So that's what I did. Right, okay, so I did that, and then what should I do? The next one I have to come down anyway, right? So the position here, so this is a 0 0 position, which is the center, right? So I'm just drawing this around it. Okay, right. So the next one will be in this case going to be where it is, this guy right here, right? So x max and y max will be this one right here. So you can see I'm drawing this one opposite of the picture. Let's see how it comes, right? Right, so if it is upside down, we may have to change this, right? So I assume it is not, so I'll put it here, this guy, and here minus 1.0. So it is -1, right? Obviously that's what it is, right? Obviously when I come down, this has to be nothing but -1, right? -1, right? So this is the position here, right? So that's that, and then I have to go all the way here, right? Okay, so this is the last one. So in the last one I put x min and y max. This is good, and I had to change my values now. What are the values here? The x position is positive, so this will be positive 1, right? 1.0, and the y position will be negative, so it is negative 1.0, right? And then this is 0, right? So this is what I draw so far as a polygon with a texture code in it, right? So yep, so let's use that for the rest of the work, and if I had to show you something else, I will. Right, so yeah, so you need some rotations and scale, translation and all that, and we'll put that everything here with the push and pop inside the push and pop. So one thing I had to do is bind this texture, right? So let's have gl bind texture, and then gl underscore texture and underscore 2d, right? Come on, what did I call it? Can't remember. Let me go back and check. What did I call this? I call it enemy text. So this is what I'm going to use, right? Yeah, so I'm going to bind with the enemy text here, right? So go back to my scene, right? I mean the enemy CPP, and I'll say bind with that. Okay, so right. We'll talk about this in a minute, a little later. I think you don't need actually you don't need to well, this part is okay. So Maybe I'm thinking of this one right here. You may have to think about this a little. We'll talk about this a little later, right? How we gonna handle this part, right? So okay, so now I want to do this rotations and then the scaling and the translation and all that. So so bind texture is good. Now we'll have GL push and pop, GL push matrix. So this is another place that you can do this, or you can do it in the scene. Since I'm using multiple objects, I'm going to put different sizes and all that. So so that's why I'm using it here. Okay, the GL pop matrix. Okay, and so then inside that, each one has a different things I do. Let me make it a little better by having some indent. Okay, so now it's look good, right? And here we do the translation and rotations. So let me grab that from somewhere else. I don't want to type it all. Yeah, there it is, the scale and all that, right? So you copy this part from here. This is from the player, and go back to this and then paste it. Well, I should have the same name convention, so in that case it would be easier than this. But anyway, I don't have that, so let's see, X position, Y position, Z position, X pos, Y pos. Okay, that's good. And rotation, no, this is not what I use, right? I use rotate X, right? Well, yeah, that's why I said should have fixed the same, easier for me. Rotate Y, and this is rotate roots, rotate Z. Okay, so and then the sizes, let me go back and check whether what I have for the size. Okay, YX, that's good enough, I guess. And one. Right, so that is the translation and the positioning. So, and then this is how I'm drawing it, and I think that's good. Compile and see if you are making any errors. So I'm going a little steps by little step, right? So why that helps you when you do that, you don't have to at the end, if you have really big number of bugs, it will be too much to track back. So if you're doing a little by little, it's easy for you. Okay, and yeah, so the placing enemy, whatever you want to call X, Y, and Z, I can use that, just placing whatever I'm going to do. Each time when you place, you can reset your time if you want, or we can do time on action. So let's do the placement here. Placing enemies, it is nothing but translation, right? So these are the values that I have for the translation, right? So each time if I want to do something else than is walking, in this placement I'm going to use this one. So let's have it like this, and then set each value. This is equal to X, equals to X, and then this equals to Y, right? And this going to equal Z. So those are the positions. Usually so resetting a time is a good thing when you're placing enemies, right? So that means each step you reset your timer, because it's doing one place to another. Placement is nothing but a movement, right? So the timer for this one will start in initialization. Okay, so this is right here. When you initialize, yeah, each time when you taking action, let's set its own timer, right? So what did I call for the timer? Here we call TE. So let's start the TE for his enemy and his actions. So I'm going to start the timer. Oh, where's my timer? Start. Start. I think it's like this, right? Yeah. No. I think so. It didn't show me. So let me see again. I have, yeah, I have start here, so it's start, right? So that is where I'm going to start things. I'm going to load the image. When you want to load the image for this guy, okay, so well, since I'm making multiple enemies and I don't want to load the image for each one of them. I can load once and then use that. So in that case, I can load only. I can assign value to not the file name. I can. Okay, so let this be. I have to address this one somewhere, so let me think about that when we come to that. Okay, right. So then the actions, so I'm going to create many actions, not one, right? And each action I can do something. So we'll load an images in multiple places and see how that works, and we'll come back to the action. So I'm going to stop here for this one, just saying that. So let's go to scene and see whether how I'm going to implement this and whether I can get them to display on the screen. Then we'll talk about the actions and all that. Okay, so let's go to the scene.cpp. So the very first thing I have to do is include a library of enemies. So include, and we call underscore enmsh. So that is that, and then we will create some of them. Not one, a lot, right? So how many enemies we're going to look at? Let's create a few more. Like, how do I do that? Well, this is not the pointer anymore. I'm going to create an array of enemies, right? So I can do enms, right? And simple enms without underscore, and we call this, how many you want? Maybe 20. Yeah, 20 is good. Okay, so let's have 20 of them. So enemies, 20 of them I'm going to create. Okay, right. And okay, so that is that. And when we come to initialization of those things, before anything we have to do is yeah, so the initialization of all the enemies, right? So here when we do the initialization, I like to do is assign position for each. That is one thing I can do. And then load an image, right? So I had to do the load an image and positioning each one. Okay, so now right, so one thing I'm really still concerned about, that anything, right? So let's go back and let's initialize the rest of it. So we need for loop because you have 20, right? And let's say integer I equals 0 and I less than 20, right? And I plus plus. Of course, you can design this the way you want. I'm just giving you the basic structure how you're going to do this, but feel free to apply whatever you like to apply. This is a one way of writing a very basic code. You obviously can change anything on here. Okay, right. And right, so now the placement is, we have something called placement, right? ENMS, and then and then I'm going to place these everywhere, right? So it is a place enemy, right? Place enemy, and I have to give the X, Y, and Z. So I'm going to have some float values, which is random, right? So the float, I'll get float, and I call rand function, rand, right? And well, for now, let's have rand between -5 and right, my screen size is -5 to +5, as I remember. So the integer value, if I get up to what, 0 to, well, let's do something like this and see. We can change that later. So up to 5 maybe, right? And then there's no negative value right now, so they will be on one side of the screen all the time, right? Okay, so we'll look at that later, right? So right now that's what I have, which is okay. So let's talk about what I'm talking here, right? So the issue is we are creating 20 enemies. So well, let's say these are the objects of 20 of them, right? Okay, so the problem is now, like that, I have 20 of them, right? The problem is well, each one of these 20 will have the same picture, right? So this is my picture, the image I'm going to load there, right? Right. So what I'm doing by image loader is take this picture and put it into the memory, right? So this is the memory of my system. So the process of putting this into the memory is what image loader does, right? So so only one image, and I can load it into this, and then I can wrap each of these images, I mean each of these objects with the same image, right? So I can put that one here, I can put the same image here, I can put the same image here, and I can put the same image to all of these guys, right? So it's only one time I have to do the loading. So that means I'm reading this file and then put it into the memory, and I will have memory handler which is called tex, in this case enemy tex or whatever I call it, and I can just simply handle it to each of these. So it's not necessary to load this one 20 times, right? So that means it's a waste of memory and the time if you do that. So in that case, I can load it in once, and then I can just use their text handler, right? I think I call it enemy text or something like that, right? Yeah, enemy text or something like that. So if I use this guy and set this handler to this one, so I can apply into this. So in that case, I just do this only once, not 20 times. So you don't need this one to do 20 times, and apply that to each of these images. That will work, right? So you can see this is optimization decision, because you're making a lot of images, I mean a lot of instances of the same object, but reading this guy 20 times is useless. I mean it is a waste of time, right? So because of that, so having object loader inside the instances does not make any sense, right? So let's change our code a little because we have to handle this situation. We're going to use it wisely, because otherwise whenever you will have a texture loader inside an object, if you do the same object, same picture on and on, it is a waste of your resources, right? So let's talk about that and think about that a little and see how we can handle that, right? Okay, so let's go back to the code and alter a little bit. So give me a second, so I will do that and take care of that part so we can do it better. So let's go to .h file of enemy first, and yeah, I don't need this line right here. I will have only the handler, which is this guy, which is this one right here, and I'm going to get rid of this one. So cut it, because I'm going to use it in some other place. So I cut it off, and then yeah, I don't need init enemy. Maybe you need it for something else, but you don't need the file name here, because I'm going to apply that in my scene. So in that case, let's do one thing here, which is I'm going to get the file handler and apply that to each of those things, each of these things. That's what I'm going to do. So let's have, I'm going to pass glu int here. Okay, so this glu int will be the handler passing to this handler right here. So that's what I'm going to do, right? So glu int, right? So that's what I'm going to use. So I do that change here. So let's save this and go back to my enm, yeah, the enemy here, and instead of file name, now I have glu int, sorry, glu int, right? And let's call this tex, right? And yeah, so I'm setting my timer anyway in there. So, and the other thing I do is I will take what did I call enemy text, right? Yeah, let me check one more time just to make sure. Yeah, the enemy text, that's what I call it, right? So enemy text and enemy text, and I'm going to say my enemy text is going to be equal to tex, right? Okay, so sounds good. So now let's go here and now I need the texture handler. So after enemy, I'm going to create one handler for everything. Oops, I lost that. So let's type that again. So texture, right? Texture loader and pointer is, we call it enmstex, oops, tex, and that's going to be equal to new underscore texture loader. All right, so I'm going to use that, oops, brackets, of course, right, and then a semicolon. Right, so I'm going to use this guy and load the image here, so it will do one time loading, and then I'm going to use that. So let's come here and address the one somewhere here, right? And that's enm as text, right? And then the pointer, and then we say load texture, right? And then I'm going to load an image there. So what is the image I'm going to use? I think I call it mon. So let me double check that. Yeah, it is called mon. So let's have the quote and then say images /mon dot png. So why png? Because I need the background transparent, right? Okay, so I have that here. This is only reading only once now, and then I'm going to put that guy into my I'm going to pass that into my enemy initialization. So in that case I will have all together in the right place. So let's talk about that and then put it in there. Oops, I forgot to fix my this part as well. I need x, y and z in there. Right, so let's go ahead and call enmsi dot init enemy, right? And then here I'm going to get the handler. So the handler will be in this case it'll be nothing but enm stacks, right? And I have a texture loader there, and I think I have a text handler right here. So that's what I'm going to use. So this guy will be plugged into all the enemies there, right? So that's what I'm going to do. Right, okay, so this is my x position. Y position set to 0.5, right? I will place it later somewhere else if I want to. And z as whatever I have in there. I think I have as a z, oops, not there. Let me go up here and see whether what is z on z position is -4. So let's have -4 right now for the same value here. So it is -4.0. Yeah, so that is my values for this guy, right? Okay, so then you go to draw scene, right? And I'm going to draw a lot of them, right? So I'm going to draw 20 of them. So yeah, so I have the pop and push already set it up over there. So then after my player, maybe I will draw these guys. The one problem here is if I draw it after the player, it will be when you're thinking of PNG, when your player is passing them, well, you can see them front of the player, so you may have to consider where you want to put them. For now, let's put it here. Okay, so for int, again, I equals 0, I less than 20 of them, I plus plus, I'm going to draw all of them, right? So then simply draw them, right? Okay, so I'm going to draw them here, and then we'll talk about what we can do to change things later on. So for now I'm going to draw them. Okay, so how can I draw them? Well, we'll go back to enemy again, and then I say draw enemy. For now I will use this one, this function. Just call it here and see what happens. We'll talk about that later, how we're going to adjust that. Right, so right now, so I will just draw them here. So we call it draw enemy, and then semicolons. Okay, so now I have 20 of them. I'm going to draw. Oops, you have to say enmsi dot draw enemy. Alright, so let's run this, see what I get. Do I get something productive? I don't know. Let's see. Right, one error here. What is the error? It says, okay, the rand is float. Let's do it like this. I think This will do. Right. Yep. And what do I get? Well, this is the screen I have right now. So let me adjust that to the size of my screen. So yeah, so it's so big, and but anyway, it's drawing something on the screen now. So these are very in the front, and then this is what I have. So everything else is working like that, but this is not what I want. I want to make them move on my screen, up and down everywhere, right, walking. So that is the first step is succeed. So we'll have the texture is applied to all of them, and they're on the screen right now, and then just standing, right? Okay, so so the first step is good. Now what we had to do is set them action, and then set him move automatically up and down wherever I want to make them move, right? Okay, so for that let's set some action into this. Okay, right, so let's go back to my actions on my enemies class. So let's go there, and this is my actions right here. That's what I'm going to do. Obviously I have to pass the action, and we will have some integer value as action, and set the action to do something. So obviously I need one action, so let's have an integer value action. Let's have here, right? So let's say int action, right? And this is to make an action for enemy, right? Okay, so that is the action. Well, and then we go to enemy.cpp and set my action to 0 at the beginning. So let's have action initialization to 0, action equals 0, right? Equals 0, right? And then let's write the action. So what are we going to do in the action? Well, I will set this up as a switch actions, so each action will be different, and yeah, and then we'll do the draw enemy here in these actions, and then call in my display the actions instead of draw enemy. Okay, so here the switch, and switch takes action as my factor, and then obviously these two, and then case 0, and break. Of course, remember when you're writing something you put the break there, and then case 1, which is break again, right, right here, and then 2 cases is enough. All right, so I'm going to walk him up and down. So that's what I'm going to do, right here. If time ticks, right, te get time, get ticks, if it is greater than how much, maybe 60, 100, whatever. 60 is good for now. We'll set it up for 60, and then we say x minimum, right? So this is the same thing what we did before, right? Remember, 1.0 divided by frames. Since I have a fixed frame for everything, I just do that. Otherwise you have to pass the frames, as remember that if you have different frames. And this guy also plus 1.0 divided by frames. Oops, that is x man max and x min. Okay, so I'm missing equal sign here. Since I put 1.0, it is not going to be integer value. So this will take care of your conversion. So that's what I'm saying. That is another way of doing take care of conversion, but it's depending on the compiler. Sometimes it might give you trouble. In that case you have to put float in the front, but anyway, we'll talk about this. We'll do it like this and see whether it works. Okay, right, so this guy is going to be 0.5, and that's the minimum, and the maximum, my max, is going to be 1.0. Right. Okay, so this is that settings, and then I will have my reset when it's go over off the screen. So which part I have to take care of? Well, I have to take care of x max, right? So x max, if it is greater than 1, what do you do? Well, if it is greater than 1, I have to go and x min set it to 0, right? And x max set it to 1.0 divided by frames. Okay, it's very important that you put 1.0. okay, right. And then not 1. All right, so it is TE, which is my timer. I'm going to, is that capital, I guess? Yeah. And reset. Where's my reset? Well, if I don't see it, I put right this reset. It should be there. Let me see whether my TE is caps. Yeah, it is. Okay, so now should have, so TE, yeah. Oh, should have reset function in there, but I did not see it. But anyway, okay, so this is that, and then I call ending. So this all happens when I start with my curly brackets here, and then I'm going to end it right here, and then I call draw enemy. So I will unplug that from there. Draw a, yes, that's what it is. So semicolon on that. Okay, so this is that. Okay, so now for the other one, which is action 1, I would do the same. I can flip this and do it, right? So only thing here which is changed is my y-axis values, right? So my y-axis values will be changed at this point, so they are walking other way. So it is right, these two, right? What I'm talking about here is this. So let's get my images one more time. I'll show you what it is and why those values comes in. We talk about that in lesson 8, so let me pull that one more time and talk about it here as well, so you will have a clear idea what I'm talking about, right? Okay, and yeah, so right, so here is my y height, which is exactly 1, right? So the one action is this one, which is 0 to 0.5, and the other is 1.5 to 1.0. So one action is moving this way, the other action is moving this way, right? So this is what I'm going to use. All right, so okay, let's take care of that real quick, and then so only thing I'm changing on actions is these two here. Now this one will be 0 to 0.5, 0.5. Okay, all right, so that's good. And then initialization of x min, Oops, I have the capital I. It won't work. It would be simple I, right? And then here as well, it is the same. It's another typo, right? Okay, so now draw enemy here. We do the same, and then I think that is good for the action here, but we had to play around with this a little bit more in my scene. So let's go back to scene and handle this action better, right? So go to scene, and now instead of drawing this one right here in my draw scene, instead of drawing this, now I'm going to do is calling my actions. So in this case, I need move them back and forth, right? So that is what my action is going to be, to move them one direction and the other time the other direction. So I will change the position, and then anyway it's going to translate the position on my draw scene, all right? So it will take care of there, right? So 0 to 20, what I'm going to do, if I say if the position of my enemy, so it in ms I, right, and dot x position, right? So x, oops, dot x position, right? If it is less than minus 2.0, I will put one action there. So what is the action I'm going to put this? I'm going to set these guys to action. Let's put I'm going to move them in one direction. So it is action 1. Action equals 0. So that is one direction, right? And yeah, so let's set up my move. Move to the move speed, or the direction I dot x move, right? That's what I call it, x move. I think let's see what it is. I should show you when you put a dot there all the options I have. I did not see it, so let me see. What did I call? X move. So this is what I'm going to use. Sorry, that is my speed of movement. That means I'm going to change my position little by little with using this guy, right? So yeah, so that is what I'm going to use. X move, right? So this is what it is, and then set this to 0.01 maybe. So he's going to move very slowly. Else if it is else, so he's going to go on the other side of the screen. Else if, let's say enms I dot x position, x pos is greater than 2.0, then I'm going to move him the other direction. So let's have this, and then I say enms I, right, dot action, set the action to action equals 1, right? And yeah, so sorry, same thing, it is x move here. Only thing difference is I'm going to put that negative value. So I'm going to put that here, and then I'm going to change its direction to negative value, so it's minus. Okay, right. So now I had to negative minus 1, right, like that. So now what I'm going to do is change my x position using these things, right? So let's change it. And how do I change it? enms, right, and I, right, dot x position, right, x pos, right? Xpath plus equals, right? E, which is E NMS S, and I dot X move, right? All right, so I'm going to use that guy, which is this the steps, the speed that I'm going to move it. So I'm repeatedly calling my action function here, right? So this is how you're going to roll with it. So for still I'm in the loop, right? So it is enms and I dot actions, right? And I call that function and do this. So let's see whether the sizes I did not change yet. We'll see if this works, and then we'll talk about the sizes of each enemy. So right now I have ending here, so it's a good way to remarks this is end of for loop. Keep that while when you're writing things. Alright, so let's run this and see what you get. So far so good. Oops, I have error, obviously. This has to be capital M. It should be the same error down here because I just copied that. Right, M here. So let's compile that. And I think I have another error which is says E. Obviously it's not E, it is N, ENMS. Why did I put E? I don't know. That is, I had to change this. ENMS, right? And then again, right here, ENMS. Right. Okay, so is that? Compile again. Right, and then let's see what happens when I run this on the screen. Well, I have weird looking thing like this, but they're moving left to right, and then they're changing the direction. That's good. So that part is working, but well, some random values did not work as I expected, but some did, and then but the animation is working, right? Yeah. And okay, so now let's set them right. You can see a little bit right here. We'll fix that a little later. You can see the edges of the other one on the top, so we'll see how we're going to fix that as well. Okay, right, close that. Right, so what is the problem here is my random value, which is right here, this one. It's not look good. So one way of doing taking care of this is we need to get set everything into my screen, right? And so think about that. How are we going to take care of that part, right? I think the maximum random number, it will give you some number if I call it max rand, and I think the max rand is float value. So let's see one thing here. Instead of this so the value here, instead of I'm taking like this, right, and let me have something like this. This is from like that, and then have maximum rand max, I think it is rand underscore max. Yeah, that is the value, and let's multiply that by rand max multiplied by 5, and since my screen is 0.25, so I just put 2.5 there, right? Yeah, so that's good enough, I guess. And also they're a little bit high on up, so let me get them on the bottom, so like that. maybe a little bit far, it's too close. Maybe 5 is good. And I want to change the sizes, like don't want to have the same size, right? um, so scale it down. So let's do the scale it down. So it is like enms I dot x, right, dot size, x size, right, x size, and let's set the same size for the y, right? So use enms I dot y size, right, y size. Let's set this to float. Again, the random sizes. I'm going to have random sizes here. So it is rand, and you can use srand if you want. There are so many other random functions. I'll just stick with pretty basic ones, right? Let's have up to 12 sizes, right? Yeah, 12 sizes, and well, even the 1 to 12 is too big, so let's make it half of it, right? Divide by 50.5. So 12 sizes, very small, right? That's something you can do. So let's see now what happens when you run this. Right, so this is what I get. Right, some of them you don't see properly, but some you do, and then some of them moving, the others don't. So we may have some issues to fix, right? So they're moving, some of them moving both sides. That's good, right? Tiny little ones, and you can see some of them are cut off. Why is it cut off? I think the player is overtaken them, right? You see that it is running behind the player, so because of that you don't see them properly. So I had to bring them to the front. That is the one thing I had to do. So I had to check where's my player is right now on the z-axis, right? So let me see where is my player on the z-axis. I think I had to go to player. If I did I initialize it here? No, right? Oh yeah, z position is -3. So in that case, if he's in 3 and this guy, let me divide that to, if he's in 3, I had to make these guys front of them, so it is 2.5 maybe, right? 2.5. So that is my z-axis for player. So now it's too big because so it's like I bring them half, more half. So it is, let's have 85 here. See what happens. That is one thing I had to take care, right? So it will change the size of it. All right. So yeah, it's look good now. Let me show you that. But they're on the water, but you can see the whole thing, and only very few of them walking, the others don't, so we'll have to worry about that and see why is that. But now they're going back and forth on the screen, so this is a good thing, right? Yeah. And a few more to handle, which is these guys are now moving anywhere. So I want to put them on the top here on the screen, right? So maybe I can make them a little bigger or whatever. So let me see now. Yeah, so this 0.5 is too low, so let's put them in the 0 position, see what that brings you onto the table. So and then adjust this placement. Okay, let me put this one like 0.5 is too low, 0.2 maybe, yeah, because they're too close to the camera. A little change of this will be a big change. Yeah, so let's see this one. Yeah, that's perfect. So let me show you this. This is where they are now, right? So they're in the screen in the right position, but only a few of them moving, the others don't. So I had to take care of that and see what did I do wrong, and why is it not why the others are not moving at all. So let me check that, and then we'll address that issue, right? So okay, so we are so close, right? Okay, so let's check that. Okay, so why it did not move? Well, so one thing we can recall, we did not initialize xmove, right? I think we did not. Let me go and check. So we don't have addressing xmove here. We can go and check here. I don't think in a constructor or my initialization I did not address xmove. So xmove doesn't have value at the beginning. So that is the problem. So xmove, let's have some value at the beginning here. What we should give, we can give 1, or we can give -1, whatever we want. So I think it's better to give them a value as 0.01, right? Okay, 0.01. So it will go in one direction. Now xmove has a value. So when you run this, now it should run everybody back and forth, right? So when we run this, and let me bring it here with a smaller screen. There you go. All right, so now I have something is running. Good. So now he's running back and forth on the screen, and my actions are working fine, right? And yeah, there's no collision for anything. I think well, the collision is one thing that you do in your test as well. I just gave you the midterms to take care of it. Think about that. I will give you a small idea on the collision on my next lecture. I think this one is going over the time, so I will stop right here. And so this is how I put multiple objects on the screen. These are little enemies, so you can even use this as a model class. You can create multiple models or the objects, which is instead of enemies or whatever you want to do. Obviously you can do that too as well, right? So yeah, it's pretty nice if you can move the auto moving parallax for the water, so you can see it's much more realistic. And yeah, he's in one place, so it's no use of doing my parallax on this one, but this is just for the learning, so you can do stuff using this, right? So I believe you learned something new on this one, so I'll see you on the next lecture. All right.